Part 3. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 21. The mother and daughter had not seen each other for a long time, and they stayed in the room talking for most of an hour. When Ms. Nan learned that Nan 11 was injured on her arm, and that she had cut it with a dagger herself, she was angry and distressed. Even if you have to give it to Nan 11, you don't have to hurt yourself if you teach me a lesson. Why are you so stupid? Nan 11 was about to speak when a woman's domineering voice suddenly sounded outside the door. Auntie. My mother has taken a fancy to a newly arrived bracelet from Moyo Pavilion. She asked me to come to Auntie's place to get 3,000 taels of silver. Tomorrow, Bailing County on the Lord's 16th birthday, I will wear the bracelet to the banquet. Nan 11 frowned. Is this Nan Xiao? Nan Xiao is the daughter of her father's second concubine, Mrsli. She is 15 years old, only 1 year younger than Nan 11. Mrs. Nan nodded. She does this often. When Nan 11 asked this question, she realized how much she had neglected her mother in the past. She had no idea how the concubines in the backyard treated her mother. Mrs. Nan smiled lightly. It's just a matter of getting some money, you don't need to take it to heart. Don't you mind? Nan 11 raised her eyebrows slightly. They regard my mother's place as a bank account, and they come here to get money when they need it? Even if it's a ticket bank, you have to get a banknote before you can exchange the money, right? Mrs. Nan looked indifferent. I usually don't bother to argue with them. They want money, so I just treat them as beggars and send them away. Nan 11 chuckled. How can you give so much money to a beggar? You only asked for 3,000 taels. This comes several times a month. Even if my mother has gold and silver, it is not enough for them to squander. No. Mrs. Nan lowered her voice. What they are here to get now is some cash on hand. I will keep all the valuable properties in my mother's hands for you. Nan 11 felt sad. Mother. Mrs. Nan touched her hand. Your father came from a poor family and did not have a strong family background. He was always cautious in doing things, for fear of being caught and put to death. It was not easy for him to reach the position of Prime Minister. Naturally, he didn't dare to take a wrong step. He was a self-righteous person and thought that money was a vulgar thing. Therefore, in these years, even if the ministers of the court offered him gifts, he did not dare to blatantly accept them. With his little salary, he would not accept them openly. It's not enough to maintain the expenses of the government, not to mention the courtesy among officials outside. Speaking of this, a bit of sarcasm appeared on her face. He has used my money to raise women these years, and the daily expenses of the concubines in the house have also been raised by me, so even if they are a little rude, they are still don't dare to be too presumptuous. After all, everyone is pointing at her to live their lives. Outsiders only see the majesty of the Prime Minister, and even the concubines in the Prime Minister's mansion are very dignified when they walk out, and the concubines can hold their heads high, but little do they know that the daily expenses of such a huge mansion depend entirely on this merchant who everyone looks down upon. It is ironic to say that women are here to maintain it. Nan 11 sneered. You claim to be noble? A high-ranking prime minister uses his first wife's money to raise a woman. Except for my weird father, probably no one else can do it. Oh no, there is another Gu Qingshu. In the previous life, the two father-in-law and son-in-law had the same virtues. It is probably more appropriate to say that they were father and son. Gu Qingshu used Nan 11 all his life and harmed Nan 11 all his life. He used Nan 11's money to fight with Nan Yu and had a fierce relationship with her. Dad is pretty much the same. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 22. Madam, Nan Xiao, who hadn't heard a response from outside the door for a long time, was about to rush into the house with her maid, but was blocked by a dagger. Nan Xiao widened her eyes and stared at the dagger in front of her with fear. You, what are you doing? Who are you? Why haven't I seen you before? Yanyu raised her eyebrows. Of course you haven't seen me, but you just need to know what I have in my hand. How dare you, Nanjiao shouted angrily, do you know who I am? How dare you block my way? And you dare to point a dagger at me, are you looking for death? Yanyu said, aren't you just a shameful concubine in the Prime Minister's mansion? How dare you shout in the courtyard of the Prime Minister's wife? Is this the rule of the Prime Minister's mansion? People who don't know would think you are a high-ranking princess. You. What do you mean you? Yanyu glared at her, with a full tone of intimidation. I advise you to keep quiet. Be more restrained, otherwise you will bear the consequences yourself. You damned slut. Nanjiao Nan 11 walked out of the inner room, her eyebrows were cold, and her face was delicate and indifferent without makeup, showing off your power as a concubine in my mother's yard? Who gave you the courage? Nanjiao obviously didn't expect to see Nan 11 here, her face froze. Big sister, when did you come back? Just came back, Nan 11 said indifferently. Do I need to report to you? Nanjiao's face was embarrassed. That's not what I meant, big sister, don't misunderstand, I just come to ask my mother for money. Nan 11 smiled indifferently, with an expression of unspeakable sarcasm. My mother owes you. Nanjiao's face flushed instantly, was a little embarrassed by her blockage, and couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Madam is in charge of the household, if we need money, don't we have to ask for it from her? Really, Nan 11 said in a light tone, since you know that my mother is in charge of the household, you should know who is in charge of the inner house in this mansion, and you should know my mother's identity and the identity of you and your daughter, so please correct your attitude in the future. Sister, it's meaningless to say this. Nanjiao's tone became gloomy. Everyone in the mansion doesn't know that Madam is from a merchant family. Although my mother is a concubine, she is from a legitimate family. If we talk about status, who is superior and who is inferior? Yanyu heard this and raised her eyebrows. What did you say? Nanjiao was frightened by her momentum and couldn't help but she took a step back. What do you want to do? I tell you, this is the Prime Minister's residence, you'd better not mess around. Yanyu Nan 11 smiled lightly, as if she didn't care about anything, but she didn't take Nanjiao seriously at all. Since you think your aunt is of noble birth, you should ask your aunt for money, don't be annoying here. After that, she said lightly, Yanyu, throw her out. Yanyu answered loudly, yes. You, what are you doing? Nanjiao stared at the dagger in her hand in fear and stepped back step by step. Don't mess around, I warn you, you'd better not, don't mess around. Yanyu held the dagger and slowly approached. Looking at Nanjiao's gradually pale face, she couldn't help but sneered, are you going to leave or not? Nanjiao quickly left. Nan 11 looked at her fleeing figure expressionlessly, and in a moment, turned to look at Yanyu. Tomorrow is Princess Bailing's birthday. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 23. Nanjiao was right. Aunt Li was born in the Shangshu mansion. Although she was a concubine of the Shangshu mansion, she was also a legitimate official lady. Compared with the Prime Minister's wife Yuan, who was born in a merchant family, she always considered herself superior and never looked down on Yuan. Especially when the Prime Minister openly despised the origin of his legitimate wife, Li was naturally more fearless. So when Nanjiao returned to Qiuxuan crying, Li, who was sitting in front of the dressing table and putting on makeup in front of the mirror, was really surprised for a moment. What's wrong? Mother, Nan 11 is back. What? Li stood up suddenly, saying in doubt, isn't she in the regent's mansion? Why did she come back suddenly? I don't know, Nanjiao said angrily, and then maliciously guessed, She must have been abandoned by the regent, otherwise why did she come back without a word? Li said, "Where is the silver?" Speaking of silver, Nan Jiao was even more furious. "Without silver," Nan 11 said that I was rude to her mother, asked me to remember my identity, and said that mother was just a concubine and was not worthy of speaking in front of her. Woo, mother. It's simply hateful. Li gritted her teeth, then smiled coldly. "It doesn't matter, Nan 11 is just a brainless idiot, and she only boasted about her power, but when she met Gu Qingshu, she just threw herself at him. Why pretend to be so reserved and noble?" Nan Jiao stamped her feet. "What should we do now? If we can't get the silver, we can't buy the bracelet we like. How can we attend the birthday banquet of Princess Bailing tomorrow?" She also wanted to show off at Princess Bailing's birthday banquet. Not everyone can afford a bracelet worth 3,000 taels, and it was in a high-end place like Moyo Pavilion. The daughters of the noble families at the banquet would be envious. If Princess Bailing liked her bracelet, she could give it to Princess Bailing as a gift. Princess Bailing was the daughter of the eldest princess. If she could get close to her, she would be more popular in the circle of the powerful in the imperial capital. She could get whatever she wanted. Who would dare not give her face? She felt that it was worth it to spend only 3,000 taels of silver to win the favor of Princess Bailing, but all these plans were ruined by Nan 11, the damned one. Be patiently sat back on the stool, combed her hair in front of the mirror, and looked at her charming face reflected in the mirror. Is mother beautiful? Nan Jiao glanced at her mother. Of course she is beautiful, otherwise how could my father fall at her feet at first sight? In addition to the wife Yuan, the Prime Minister's inner court also has 4 concubines. Among them, Li's appearance is the most beautiful, charming, and knows how to please men the most. Over the years, she is the only one who gave Nan Xingzi a son, who is 13 years old this year and is currently studying. Although he was a concubine's son, since Yuanqi only had Nangzi, the legitimate daughter, the concubine's treatment was almost the same as that of the legitimate son. Nan Xingzi found the best teacher for him and placed all the hopes of the Xiongfu on this son. As a result, the status of Li Yiniang, who gave birth to a son, also rose, so she looked down on the legitimate wife. Mother is beautiful, and has Xian'er, a precious son, to show off in front of your father. Can't she deal with Yuanqi? Li smiled confidently. Wait a minute, mother will help you get 3,000 taels of silver tonight. Oh no, 3,000 taels is not enough. At least 5,000 taels are needed. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 24. Today, Nangxing's Hixiumu did not have to go to court. During lunch, Li told Nangxingji about this matter. Of course, she did not say it calmly, but she looked like she was about to cry, and her pear blossoms were weak and tearful. She was dressed simply and elegantly today, with light makeup, and her eyes were red, which made her look particularly adorable. Tomorrow is Princess Bailing's birthday. Master, I know that Princess Bailing is the eldest princess's most beloved daughter. So it goes without saying how noble the eldest princess is, right? Even the emperor is courteous to her. Li Shi, as he said that, he couldn't help wiping the tears from his eyes again. Jiao Jiao is 15 years old this year, and she finally got this opportunity to interact with those noble ladies. Why did Nan 11 cut off this opportunity as soon as she came back? Is she deliberately trying to embarrass Jiao Jiao when she doesn't get what she wants? Is this how the eldest lady teaches her daughter? Nan Xingzi frowned when he heard this. Yuan Shi is so outrageous. When Mrs. Li heard the sentence, she knew it was right. She felt proud, but her beautiful eyebrows were still lightly frowning, looking like she was trying to compromise. I tell Jiao Jiao every day that sisters should love each other and never do anything to the eldest lady being rude to my sister. Jiao Jiao probably didn't know that Nan 11 was coming home today, so I wonder if her etiquette was not very thoughtful and made the eldest lady angry. As the eldest daughter of the Prime Minister's house, how can I not be so generous? Nan Xingzi snorted coldly. Lu Fei, go and tell the eldest lady that I want to use the silver and let him take it. Give me 5,000 taels. Yes. Personal bodyguard Lu Fei took the order and left. Li almost wanted to laugh loudly, but she held it back. She snuggled up tenderly and gave Nan Xingzi a piece of meat. The Prime Minister is so kind to me. Come, eat a piece of meat to replenish your health. Nan Xingzi was so coaxed by her that he became elated, and the gloominess on his face slowly disappeared. Don't mention such common things as gold and silver in front of me in the future. I can't bear to hear this. Every time he heard about money, he couldn't help but think of his original wife's background. It was really displeasing for a lowly merchant girl to openly occupy the position of the Prime Minister's wife. Master, don't be upset, why don't you mention me now? Li Shi smiled sweetly. Master is an upright official and virtuous minister who only reads the books of sages and cares about the world, but I am a common man who is contaminated by the smell of copper. I can't live without it when I eat, drink or wear it, and I have to rely on the influence of the master. Nan Xingzi snorted, you are the only one who can speak. Then you have to do this. Mrs. Li curled her lips inwardly, but the smile on her face became brighter and brighter, and she kept picking up food for him. After a while, Mrs. Li said calmly, Master, wasn't the eldest lady trapped in the palace by the regent? Why did she come back suddenly? Is the regent tired of her? She cleverly didn't finish the last sentence, but the meaning was already there. Mentioning this, Nan Xingzi's face instantly turned cold. I don't know what the situation is yet. I don't even know what's going on. Didn't the eldest lady tell me? Li exclaimed, I am the eldest lady's biological father. How can the eldest lady be so disrespectful? This. Master Xiang. Lu Fei came back soon and bowed. Did you get the money so quickly? Lu Fei shook his head. The eldest lady is a little injured, the madam is in a bad mood, and she doesn't want to see anyone despite her orders. Li's expression changed. Did you want to go against her on purpose? The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 25. Nan Xingzi was stunned, and then he remembered that Nan 11 was stabbed by Nan Yu yesterday, and frowned. Is the eldest lady seriously injured? Lu Fei was about to speak, and Li had already spoken. Master, do you really believe that it was Nan Yu who stabbed the eldest lady? Nan Xingzi turned his head to look at him, frowning slightly. Why? Nan Yu's mother is a weak woman, and Nan Yu is Nan 11's sister. What reason does she have to assassinate her elder sister? Li's eyes were full of suspicion. Master, don't you think this is quite strange? Nan Xingzi heard this, as if he thought of something, her expression turned ugly. You mean, Nan 11 deliberately framed Nan Yu? I don't dare to think so. Li smiled faintly. The eldest lady has always been tolerant and gentle, and she doesn't seem like someone who would frame her younger sister. I just expressed my doubts. After a pause, besides, Nan Yu's personality is as weak as her mother. If she can enter the Nan family, she will have to live by her elder sister's face in the future. How could she do such a stupid thing? Nan Xingzi thought about it and felt that it made some sense. He had not wanted to step into Yuan's yard, but now he had to stand up. I'll go see what's going on. It's not difficult to find out the truth. Li smiled softly. As long as you see that the eldest lady is not really stabbed, you will know it, right? A beautiful girl must cherish her skin like a treasure, just like Xiao Xiao, who spends a lot of money every month to buy skincare creams. She feels like the sky is falling when she gets a little skin broken. She doesn't believe that Nan 11 really dares to cut herself. Nan Xingzi raised his foot and walked towards the inner courtyard. Li naturally couldn't wait to follow him to watch the show, and took her daughter's 5,000 taels of change silver. Father will come over later. Nan 11 held the teacup nonchalantly. With a mocking smile on the corner of her lips, Li will not give up until she gets the 5,000 taels of silver. I don't know how to sow discord in front of father. Yuan said calmly, 3,000 taels has increased to 5,000 in a blink of an eye. Li has never been afraid to ask for a high price in front of your father. Nan 11 said, from today on, the mother and daughter will not think of getting another tael of silver from mother. Yuan looked up at her, with a hint of surprise in her eyes, and smiled. 11 what has stimulated you recently? Stimulation. Nan 11 lowered her eyes. Wasn't she stimulated? 4 years of deep love and dedication in exchange for a ruthless heart, not to mention that she ended up with a miserable ending, and caused the noble and abstinent regent like a god to have a bad end. She has a life on her shoulders. How can she be as kind as before? Being blind once is enough. When she lives again, she must open her eyes and look at the world carefully to distinguish whether the people around her are human or monster. Do you still like father? Nan 11 raised her eyes and said in a light tone, do you still have some feelings in your heart that you can't let go of this man who betrayed you? When Yuan she heard her daughter ask this question unexpectedly, she was stunned for a moment, and then she smiled calmly and said, how can there be so much that you can't let go? So many years have passed, even if you felt sad, heartbroken, and resentful when you were betrayed at first, it has long been gone with the wind over the years. You always entangled in things that you shouldn't entangle, which is actually punishing yourself. Mother is not that stupid. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 26. Nan 11 could tell from her tone that her mother was telling the truth. Yes. Who wouldn't be heartbroken, disappointed, and sad when someone deeply loves a man and is betrayed for the first time? But after being disappointed and sad again and again, you should learn to heal the pain, learn not to care, learn to be indifferent, and slowly become numb. There is no reason for you to hurt me again and again, but I still love you deeply. Over the years, I actually don't know what I've been holding on to. Yuanqi sighed and looked around at the exquisite furnishings in the room. Maybe I just don't want those bitches to take advantage of my years of hard work. Your father was so poor back then that he couldn't even. I paid for all the expenses when he went to Beijing to take the exam. I provided for him to eat and drink, and for him to study. After he became an official, he needed to take care of everything. I also paid for all the money. It can be said that he has the status he has today. The biggest contributor is me. He sneered, although he is ungrateful and unjust, and I disdain to consider myself a hero anymore. How much effort and money did I spend on him over the years to give him the glory he has today? What if I just let him go? He doesn't care if we break up with each other, and he even wishes that I would ask myself to step down, so that he can openly and honestly propose those beautiful and coquettish bitches as his head wives, but everything in the Prime Minister's house in the future will belong to that bitch couple of the Li family. How many years have I spent on my children, only to end up making wedding clothes for others? What a beautiful idea. Nan 11 felt slightly relieved, which was good. If her mother still has feelings for Nan Xingzi and can't let go of her, then she will have to leave some leeway in doing things in the future. At the moment, it seems that her mother is completely disappointed with her father, but she is just unwilling to give in to others over the years. In this case, she has nothing to worry about. Nan Xingzi was loyal to the emperor, and he had contributed greatly to the death of the regent in his previous life. From the beginning to the end, he had turned a blind eye to the life and death of Nan 11, his legitimate daughter. In Nan Xingzi's heart, his wife is a businesswoman who makes him embarrassed, and his daughter is dispensable. As long as it hinders his official career, anyone can be abandoned. When Nan 11 returns in this life, she naturally has no time to show off the deep love between father and daughter. She must get back everything that belongs to their mother and daughter. Anyone who dares to overestimate their own abilities and think about something that does not belong to them will make them pay what they deserve. Price. Madam, girl Yunyu entered the room and bowed slightly. The Prime Minister and Aunt Li are coming this way. Nan 11 raised her eyes and looked at her mother. It's true that CAO and CAO have arrived. Come here. She picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea gracefully. It's as expected. Yunyu lowered her eyebrows and retreated, and just as she was about to close the door, Nan Xingzi's voice sounded behind her, with an air of calmness and self-importance developed from years of holding high positions. Madam and the eldest lady are in the house. Yunyu turned her head and nodded lightly, yes. Nan Xingzi frowned, feeling a little displeased at the other party's cold attitude at that moment, but thinking that this maid was from the regent's palace, he tolerated it for a moment. However, Mrs. Li seemed to be a colorless person. When she saw this, she frowned and said angrily, why do you, a maid, have no rules at all? Didn't you see the Prime Minister coming? It's just that you don't want to be polite. Why don't you open the door quickly? Yunyu glanced at her expressionlessly. The girl didn't tell me to open the door. Who are you? Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 27. What did you say? Ms. Li's eyes widened in disbelief, almost thinking she heard wrongly. Are you tired of living? Do you know who you are talking to? I am dash. What are you yelling about? The door was opened from the inside, revealing the girl's cold and delicate face. Are there any rules in this family? Hey, who are you talking about, young lady? Ms. Li smiled nonchalantly. Are you talking about me? In front of the master, do you dare to be rude to your elders? Li. She looked at Nan 11 provocatively. Aunt Li is somewhat self-aware. Nan 11's brows were indifferent, and her voice did not hide the coldness. So you immediately guessed that the person I was talking about was you. Li's face stiffened, and her eyes turned cold when looking at Nan 11. Miss, don't you think it's a bit disrespectful to talk to an elder like this? So Aunt Li also knows that I am the eldest lady of this family. Nan 11 raised her lips slightly and said in a neither salty nor cool tone, in one day, mother and daughter came to my mother's place twice to yell and scream. Aunt Li, probably you have forgotten who the head wife of the Prime Minister's house is, and you have even forgotten the difference between a wife and a concubine. Do you need me to remind you how to maintain the propriety and etiquette of a respectful concubine? Ms. Li's face turned green and white for a moment, her eyes turned red, and she turned to look at Nan Xingzi. Master. That's enough. Nan Xingzi frowned and looked at Nan 11 accusingly. 11 after all, you are the eldest daughter of the Prime Minister, how can you talk to your elders? Father, what do you think is wrong with the way I speak? Nan 11 raised her eyebrows. I am the eldest daughter and the upright mistress of the Prime Minister's mansion, but Aunt Li is just a concubine. I call her auntie when I am happy. When she is unhappy, she has to call herself a slave in front of my mother and me. Now that she is rude, my father is accusing me? Nan Xingzi's face turned livid. You are so impudent. Why are you talking to your father? Let your mother come out. As expected, she was the daughter of a merchant's daughter, and she didn't have the demeanor of a legitimate daughter. Speaking of mother, I remember one thing. Nan 11 smiled slowly. The only official wife in the Prime Minister's house is my mother. According to the rules, all the sons and daughters of the bastard should respectfully call my mother mother, instead of aunt. Aunt Li is a concubine. Even her biological children can only call her aunt. This is the difference between a wife and a concubine. As she spoke, Nan 11 raised her eyebrows lazily. As the prime minister of a country, my father shouldn't talk about the rules of the house and make people laugh, right? Presumptuous, Nan Xingzi was furious. Nan 11, do you still think of me as a father? Is this what your mother taught you? Did you disrespect your elders and become arrogant and domineering? Go kneel in the ancestral hall for me immediately. This is not okay, Yin Yu said coldly. My prince told me to protect the girl and never let anyone bully the girl. If anyone dares to anger the girl without looking at her, my prince will get angry. Yin and I will. If you can't stand it, you have to tell the truth. After the words fell, the air condensed instantly. The face of the dignified prime minister of a country seemed to have been splashed with colored ink, with red and white interlaced, green and green interlaced, and finally turned pale, unable to speak a word. Aunt Li's face turned pale and she didn't dare to fart. Why are you looking for me so aggressively? Mrs. Nan walked out of the inner room and looked at Nan Xingzi as if she were a stranger. Are you asking for money again? The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 28. She said it bluntly, totally disregarding Nan Xingzi's noble character, and even anticipated the other party's reaction. As expected, after saying this, Nan Xingzi's face turned green. What do you mean you're asking for money again? I don't have the power to use the things in this mansion. Tomorrow Jiao Jiao will go to attend the birthday banquet of Princess Bailing. You immediately take out 5,000 taels of silver from the warehouse to give her dash. Warehouse, Yuan smiled coldly. I wonder how much silver the prime minister puts in the warehouse every year? I want to take it out for her, but is there any in the warehouse? Nan Xingzi was angry and embarrassed. His face became embarrassed and embarrassed. Is there only money in your eyes? Don't forget that you are the prime minister's wife. Go out and look at those first rank and second rank ladies outside. Which one is not elegant and dignified? Poetry, wine, flowers and tea? Who talks about those vulgar things all day long? It turns out that she is a merchant girl, not presentable. Over the years, she has obviously been accustomed to such words, and she doesn't care about it. She didn't care about it in the past, and of course she didn't care today. It's just that everyone has a temper. That's right, she was born in a merchant family, so what storms have she not seen? Since the prime minister can't listen to those vulgar things and doesn't look down on merchant girls, don't let people come to me to get silver in the future. If there is silver in the warehouse, go directly to the warehouse to get it, she said, lest it spread out and let outsiders think that your concubines and daughters in the prime minister's mansion have to rely on a merchant girl to support them, which will tarnish the noble and elegant temperament of your concubines. After saying that, she stepped out of the threshold and closed the door. 11 Mother is really bored staying in the mansion. You accompany mother to go out for a walk and see what jewelry to buy for you, and then let the tailor of the Bayi Pavilion come to tailor a few beautiful new skirts for you. Nan 11 took her mother's hand and responded with a smile, okay. Okay is just one word, and after saying that, the mother and daughter walked out hand in hand. Yin Yu follows me, Nan 11 said calmly. Yin Chuang stays in the mansion. Don't let anyone rummage around in my mother's room. If anything valuable is missing, I'll come back and ask you. Yin Chuang responded expressionlessly, yes. She didn't care that Nan Xingzi and Li's faces were already so stiff that they couldn't be read. It's really unreasonable. Nan Xingzi shook his sleeves and left unhappily. Li looked at him blankly. What about Jiao Jiao's bracelet? You can do whatever you want. Nan Xingzi was so angry that he didn't want to pay attention to her anymore. He was a person who assisted the emperor, with a long-term vision and lofty ambitions. How could he be tarnished by some vulgar things? Although she was the wife of the prime minister, Even though she had long lost the favor of Nan Xingzi, no servant in the mansion dared to be rude to Yuan. After all, although Li's mother and daughter were arrogant and domineering, and it was hard to tell who was the master, the servants knew it very well. Their monthly salary was all paid by the madam. Although the Prime Minister was in charge of the Prime Minister's mansion and the Prime Minister doted on the mother and daughter of the Li family, the one who held the power of the treasury was the madam. Who dared to offend the madam? Moreover, although the madam came from a merchant family and was not as noble as the noble ladies of the powerful families in the imperial capital, she was generous. The servants had no time to care whether the madam came from a famous family or was a nobody. Even if they saw that she had several more taels of monthly salary every month, they were willing to follow the madam's lead. So when the madam and the eldest daughter went out to shop, although the scene was not grand, they could get the carriage ready with a single order, and the servants guarding the gate bowed and sent them off respectfully, not daring to neglect them in the slightest. Vulgar things. Nan 11 raised the corner of her lips slightly. Who can avoid being touched by vulgar things in the world? Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 29. Unless one stops eating and drinking and directly ascends to heaven, who can really stay away from worldly things? Those noble people who regard money as dirt have retired to the mountains and forests. Who is still struggling in the officials and businessmen who are full of fame and fortune, intrigue and conspiracy? The carriage was driving on the long street. When the curtain was lifted, Nan 11 looked at the bustling and noisy streets with some greed. The hustle and bustle seemed to be far away from her. In the previous life, she was trapped in the regent's palace. If she hadn't been making trouble, it shouldn't have been difficult to leave the palace to see this noisy scene. Unfortunately. Is Hanlin Street in front? Nan 11 looked up and saw a familiar Ma Beizai. She came back to her senses and smiled faintly. Let's go to the front and take a look. Hanlin Street, as the name suggests, is a place that specializes in selling literati supplies such as the four treasures of the study and ancient books of classics and history. The courtiers of the great Zhou and the scholars of the noble families like to come here to buy study supplies. The carriage stopped outside Ma Beizai. Madame Nan lifted the curtain and looked outside, frowning slightly. 11 what do you want to buy for Gu Qingshu? Nan 11 and Gu Qingshu had a good relationship before, and often came to Ma Beizai to buy high-quality pens, inkstones, and out-of-print books for Gu Qingshu. Gu Qingshu's study is still filled with the precious things that Nan 11 gave him before. Nan 11 shook her head and smiled faintly. Not for Gu Qingshu. Then who is it for? Madame Nan frowned and quickly thought, it can't be for the regent, right? Stepping into Ma Beizai, Nan 11 saw the shopkeeper introducing an inkstone to a guest, so she turned around and looked at it casually, waiting very patiently. This Duan inkstone is of the highest quality. Look at the engraving of a fish leaping over a dragon gate. It's a great omen. You won't find another inkstone like this on the market. And the stone is from Ziun Mountain. Huh, a surprised voice of a young girl sounded outside Ma Beizai. Nan 11. Ma Beizai suddenly became quiet. The shopkeeper and the young man who was going to buy the inkstone turned their heads to look outside. Nan 11 also turned her head and saw the purple-skirted girl getting off the carriage. Her eyes narrowed and a strange light flashed across her eyes. Nan 11, shouldn't you be in the regent's mansion? Why are you here? The girl looked at Nan 11 with scrutiny, looking her up and down. Could it be that the regent doesn't want you and kicked you out? How can you talk like that, little girl? Madame Nan saw a pretty little girl getting off the car and thought she was Nan 11's friend. She didn't expect her to be so disgusting as soon as she opened her mouth. Whose little girl are you? Why are you so rude? Oh, I was wondering who it is. Isn't this the first-rank lady from a merchant family in the Prime Minister's mansion? The girl looked at Yuan-shi with contempt, and sneered with a fake smile. No wonder Nan 11 is here, so it was the madam who brought her out to support the occasion? But it is understandable. If a woman who has just lost her reputation and was abandoned is not treated with more love by her mother, what if she commits suicide? Don't you think so? The maids who followed her nodded one after another. The princess is right. Madame Nan frowned. The more she listened to the girl's words, the more disgusted she felt. She was about to argue with her, but she saw Yin Yu walked up to her aggressively. I was wondering who was being weird and stinking here. It turned out to be you, Princess Baelin. The princess has no one to love her recently. Seeing that my girl is spoiled by someone, she can't help but be jealous, right? Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 30. What did you say? The girl's face turned red. She raised her hand and slapped Yin Yu on the face. Who are you? How dare you come to teach this princess a lesson? See if I don't tear your mouth apart, ah! Yin Yu suddenly grabbed her wrist, raised her hand and slapped her across the face. Snap! Crisp and loud. Everyone in Mo-Baizai was shocked. The maids were stunned. Princess Baelin covered her face in disbelief. You actually dare to hit me? You actually dare? Allow me to solemnly introduce myself to you. Yin Yu shook off her hand and slowly flexed her wrist. My name is Yin Yu, one of the gold medal guards of the regent's palace, and I have been ordered by my master to protect Miss Nan 11. If I say I beat you, even if I kill you in the street, I guarantee that your parents will not dare to challenge my master. From the moment she heard I am Yin Yu, one of the gold medal guards of the regent's palace, Princess Baelin's face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. When Yin Yu finished speaking, she wanted to die. The heart is there. In addition, this Yin Yu took a step back, her eyebrows slightly lowered. The mistress of the Prince Regent's palace, the future Princess Regent, Miss Nan 11, my prince's favorite. The prince has specifically confessed that no one dares to treat Nan 11. The girl is rude and will be blamed on the prince if she is beaten to death or maimed. Anyone who dares to dissent should go to my prince to argue with you. Mrs. Nan was dumbfounded and couldn't help but turn to look at her daughter. Did the regent really say that? Nan 11 was also a little surprised. She still didn't know whether what Yin Yu said was true or false, whether she was making it up to scare people, or whether the regent really said such things. But there is no doubt that Yin Yu's aura at this time was so awesome and powerful that Princess Baelin didn't even dare to refute a word. She only blushed from red to green, then from green to white, and tears filled her eyes. Purely scary. I. What are you? Yin Yu glared coldly. How dare you try to be rude and provocative to my girl in the future? I don't dare anymore. Isn't it okay if I don't dare anymore? Baelin cried out. Wow, covered her face, turned around, rolled and climbed into the carriage. The maids did not dare to stay any longer and hurriedly drove the carriage to leave Mo-Baizai. No one dared to say another word. A provocative farce ended before it even started, and it was resolved neatly and without any sloppiness. Mrs. Nan looked at Yin Yu with admiration in her eyes. It's so impressive. Yin Yu smiled happily and said, Thank you madam for the compliment. It is your duty to protect the girl. Nan 11 looked at her with subtle eyes. Yin Yu. May 11. Before she finished speaking, a familiar voice sounded in her ears. Nan 11 turned around and narrowed her eyes slightly. Mr. Gu. Mr. Gu. Gu Qingshu's face changed slightly, and then he lowered his eyebrows and said with a sad tone, May 11, I have something to tell you. Can you find a place to talk alone? It sounds like someone has abandoned you. Men and women are not intimate. Nan 11 noticed that the shopkeeper and the young man who bought the inkstone were listening with their ears pricked up. There were also many people watching the excitement standing outside Mo Beizai. She said in a calm tone, we have terminated our engagement and we will never be together again. If it has anything to do with it, I don't want to pursue the matter of Nan Yu stabbing me anymore, and I hope Mr. Gu won't force me anymore. These words had already confirmed the fact that the engagement was terminated, and the specious sentence no more pursuing it made the onlookers think a little more. Could it be that Nan Yu's assassination of Nan 11 was really the result of Gu Qingshu's instruction?